What's an oh shit moment where you realized you've been doing something the wrong way for years? When I was 5, a Pizza Hut employee told me that the powder on the breadsticks was called fairy dust. Ordered extra fairy dust on my breadsticks until I was around 14 when an employee said back, quote, "Do you mean garlic salt?" It still devastates me to realize how obtuse I was. I worked at Pizza Hut from 16 to 21. We called it fairy dust. Not mine, but my dad has been spelling his name wrong his whole life. He's 51. His name is Jeffrey, and he's been spelling it like that since he learned how to spell his name. A few months ago my mom pulled out his birth certificate and we all learned it's actually spelled Jeffrey. Not sure if he spells it correctly now, but it was definitely an moment for him. Grandfather thought his name was Harvey his whole life. Got his birth certificate at 65 and it's Harmon, my first gold. Thanks. Until last week, when my father-in-law would made a phone call on his very basic non-touch screen flip phone, he would open the menu, scroll to the phone icon, open it, hit the soft key for contacts, scroll to the person he wanted to call, press OK, then press the soft key to call. When he mentioned how he preferred his landline because he could just dial the number, I said, humor me. Just dial the number and hit the talk button. I've never seen a man so simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. Since the dawn of time, I would pick up the silverware and utensils out of their tray in the dishwasher and put them away in their drawers, then go back and pick up more out of the dishwasher. Then one day I saw my wife lift the tray out of the dishwasher and I legit stood there with my mouth open. God damn it. I knew that thing moved because I've removed it and changed it around to make pans or big dishes fit better, and I've still been going back and forth for the silverware. I always thought eggplant tasted itchy, like itchy was a flavor, like sour or salty. Fed some to my baby and his face turned red wherever the eggplant touched, and I realized we are both just allergic to eggplant. And itchy isn't a flavor. I lol that itchy isn't a flavor. Apparently the red ring around the bologna is not supposed to be eaten. No one really ever told me you don't need to buy shoes with the back quote 2 finger space in front of the toes after your feet stop growing. I had been buying an entire size too big until about age 23. One day in college I decided to try a pair of Merrell barefoot type shoes, and after reading the sizing guide, bam, mind blown. It's terribly obvious mistake I, 29F, like to blame on being an only child. But really I'm just f***ing moron. Well, this was a few years ago. I was the director of it for a very large company. I was given a new cell phone and told to set up my voicemail. I don't know that when I recorded my name it would be played to whomever I leave a voicemail for. Well, the name I recorded was Dada84 Corporate It God. I worked there for 4 years until someone in the hallway referred to me as the Corporate It Go D. I was so embarrassed. Wear it confidently, this type of shit makes people like you more. They don't feel the need to be fake around you. When I was a kid I loved drinking coffee, but didn't know how to make it. My mom taught me, but the coffee ratio she told me to use was like 1 TBSP per 1 pot of coffee as opposed to the actual ratio 1 TBSP 1 cup of water. Fast forward about 13 years to a couple months ago, and I was reading the back of my Folgers coffee thing and there was a little diagram showing how much to actually use. I then realized my mom had told me the wrong amount, so A, wouldn't drink all her coffee, and B, wasn't super hyped up going into school. I was at Crate and Barrel with my GF talking about how it's so weird they don't make tongs, so you open them up super wide and then press in. I thought it was odd that they only gave you a super tiny opening. In the middle of me saying this, she just presses the button at the bottom of the tongs I was holding, and I stopped mid-sentence in shame. I owned a car with swivel headlights, and it was very nice to have that. Discovered 3 years in that I had never turned on the swivel feature. My name is Ryan. It took me until I was in 1st grade to realize my name wasn't in the alphabet. My mom had told me my name was in the alphabet, and I felt so lucky. She obviously meant the letters to spell my name were in the alphabet. But nope. It took that long to realize the alphabet didn't go W, X, Y and Z. Not wrong for years, but I work help desk, and we use a specific terrible piece of software for our support system, IBM Notes. It turns out that for the first 9 months I had been working there, it wasn't set up properly, so I wasn't sending any emails from it at all. No notifications that the ticket went to me, no responses from me, no close notifications, nothing. Someone noticed this, took a look, and fixed a setting. I immediately sent out over 1,000 emails to everyone in the company. You work in it and managed to keep your job without sending emails for 9 months. That's impressive. My mom used to refer to me as a bull in a china shop. Always heard it as bull in a china shop, thinking it was a compliment. At about 22 I hear someone else use the phrase and realized she meant bull, not bowl. AWW mom talking about how dainty and priceless I'm again. Realize the multicolored tape measures glued to the door frames of gas stations etc. are for identifying robbers, not for measuring yourself as you walk out. I mean, they can be, but that's not why they are there, unless you're the robber. Learned earlier last year bust a nut isn't an expression for when something hits your nuts, or you land in a way that crushes them. You're not necessarily wrong, depends on your inclination. We bought a nice liquor cabinet. We got it delivered and noticed it was a bit shorter than we thought. No biggie. 3 years later, we are moving. Lift up cabinet and these beautiful ornate, screw on legs, wrapped in tape and bubble wrap fall off the bottom. Looks so much better now. Last month was the first time I discovered lint rollers were peelable. Literally sat there for a minute to take that in. I'm 20. Couple years ago I was trying to open some toothpaste and had to break the seal of the tube. I used to look for something like a nail to break it. Then one day I looked at the pointy end of the cap and thought, what if I could use this to break it? And oh shit, it did fit and broke it effortless. And so did every other tube product I had in the house and their respective cap. My mind was blown. I had a used car and didn't realize until a couple years later that it had remote start. Person buying my now more used car. This has remote start. Me. No. Person. Pushes button. Starts car. Me. Well, price just went up. My mom has been pronouncing Massachusetts for years and no one corrected her because they thought she just had strong feelings about Massachusetts. My mother cannot pronounce that or Mitsubishi. She tries but same outcome and Mitsubishi comes out Mitsubishi. I grew up without a mom. She passed when I was 6. I was afraid to ask my dad how to put a tampon in. One day I made a comment about age 18 to some friends that tampons hang out too far out your vajingo and made me feel like I waddled when I walk. My friend asked me how I put them in. I thought it would get stuck up there and wasn't inserting it far enough. Did it wrong for about 5 years. My friends still make fun of me for it. I can't help but use the dead mom card, but looking back it's pretty common sense how to shove it up there. I use pads instead of tampons because tampons have always been uncomfortable, and after reading a few tampon related comments on this thread I'm pretty sure I just don't know how to insert a tampon. My eldest child had a penchant for blowing out of his diapers. We tried everything but multiple times a week we had to pull that poo filled onishi over his head and inevitably give our now super duper poo covered infant a bath. Around when I was pregnant with our second, a post went viral about how infant onases are designed to be broad at the shoulders, so you can pull them down and off instead of over the head. Poor kid would have had so many fewer poo and hair incidents had I known that then. It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance, to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up, and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that he asked me what I was doing. When I explained he burst out laughing, then considered it and concluded it wasn't a bad idea, but perhaps a bit distracting. Also every other driver thinks you're a super friendly guy or a bit passive aggressive. Not me but my husband. He was talking about a guy he knew who had a super busy job, but there were a lot of French benefits. I laughed and said it sounded like you just said French benefits. He looked super confused and said that's what he had said. He'd thought since he first heard the term that French benefits were called French benefits. He had never seen it written down and just misheard people when they'd said it before. I still laugh about it sometimes and will ask him if he wants me to buy some baguettes for him to take to work to give to his employees as French benefits. I lived in a house for 6 years with a bathroom with no shelf or cupboard to put toiletries into. I was very disappointed and ended up using a windowsill that was way too small to fit everything. Anyway, one day we had a friend over and he asked why we don't have anything in our bathroom cupboard. I was confused, so he showed me. It turns out that the mirror I had been using for 6 years has a hidden compartment behind it. It was a mirror door to a mounted cupboard on the wall. I was astonished and immediately moved all my stuff from the window into the new space. My friend was baffled that I had never figured out there was a space behind the mirror. There was an obvious gap between it and the wall that I somehow failed to notice.